Hi, good morning. Welcome back. We are continuing in Genesis. This will be Genesis 30 and 31. And we are continuing in the saga of Jacob and his two wives who are sisters, Rachel and Leah. And they have a little bit of competition going. Rachel has Jacob's heart because he loves her more. Remember, her name means ewe lamb, so she's very beautiful, it's said. And he fell in love with her. But he also has the wife Leah, who's able to bear children. And so far, she's bare four of them: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. And now we're going to continue on in the saga of the sisters. When Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, Am I in God's stead? Who hath withheld thee from the fruit of thy womb? And she said, Behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she will bear children upon my knees. So this is repeating what Sarah did with Hagar, because when you had a servant in that day and age, you kind of owned them and you owned their children too, which is sad, but the way it went. So Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son, and Rachel said, God hath judged me and hath also heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan, which means judge. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, With great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she left bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her to Jacob to wife. They're just going to keep on going. Can you imagine this household? It must have been really fun. Thankfully, they lived in separate tents because the pot banging would have been really loud. And Leah, Zilpah's maid, bare Jacob a son, and Leah said, A troop coming, and she called his name Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son, and Leah said, Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed, and she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. And Rachel said to Leah, Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And would you take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, Therefore he can lie with you tonight for thy son's mandrakes. So this I always thought was an odd story, but mandrakes are also this thing called love apples. I don't know what it is. It's some kind of thing that grew, and they were known for making you fertile. And so Rachel really wanted them because she wanted to have a baby herself. And so she says, Okay, well, you can have him back one night. And so this interplay between the sisters kind of causes me to wonder, because remember in the last chapter it said that Leah went off bearing. I just wonder if out of jealousy Rachel kept Jacob from going in into Leah anymore, because she does have two more kids. So I don't think it was her that stopped the baby. I think it was actually Rachel got in the way, but she says, Hey, Jacob can come stay with you tonight. So God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bare Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, God hath endued me with a dowry. Now my husband will dwell with me, because I have borne him six sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And sure enough, Leah in the end is the one who outlives her sister, and she will be buried with him in the cave of Machpelah. Rachel, we're going to find out in a minute, is going to end up dying. She does eventually give children, but she wasn't as strong at childbearing as Leah was. Afterwards, she bare a daughter and called her name Dinah. And we're going to hear more about Dinah here soon. A sad story. And God remembered Rachel and hearkened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bare a son. And God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph. And you'll know Joseph because of the coat of many colors. And said, the Lord shall add to me another son. So now they have 11, that is 11 kids. Six from Leah, two from Zilpah, two from Bilhah, so two from each of the maids. And so far, Rachel has one. Joseph, and she will have Benjamin, and she's going to die in childbirth. Spoiler alert. So they end up with 12 tribes. And now we're going to go back to the story of Laban and Jacob. And this section, starting in verse 25, the trickery of Laban and Jacob. And it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said unto Laban, Send me away, that I can go into my own place, into my own country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for you know my service which I have done. And Laban said unto him, I pray, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for thy sake. And that's a super important part right there. So Laban wasn't doing as well, and now he's doing a whole lot better because Jacob is taking care of things, and he knows that it's the Lord that's blessed Jacob, and so he wants to keep him. And he said, Appoint my wages, and I will give it. And he said, Thou knowest how I have served, and how thy cattle was with me, for how little it was that you had before I came. Remember the thing about the well? Their weird feeding schedule. It was probably just a sign of the weirdness all throughout the ranch. And so they weren't doing the right thing by the animals. And now they've increased because God's allowed it, and better husbandry, I guess is what it's called. And the Lord blessed thee since my coming. And when shall I provide for my own house also? And he said, What shall I give you? And Jacob said, You will not give me anything. If you will do this thing, I will again feed and keep your flock. I will pass through all the flock today and remove all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and if such shall be my hire, so shall my righteousness answer for me in the time to come, when it will come to for hire before thy face. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown, that shall be counted stolen. And Laban said, Behold, I would that it be according to thy word. And he removed that day the goats that were ring-streaked, spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. So he's picking out the ones that are the recessive gene, the ones that are less of, like you don't see very many brown sheep. They're mainly white. So he's picking out the lesser out of all of the animals, and then he puts them with his sons, who would have, he would have, he's been here a while, so he would have some sons that would be old enough to take care of sheep. And then he put 3 days' journey, and he went back to taking care of Laban's stuff. And Jacob took with him rods of green poplar and of hazelnut and chestnut, and piled white streaks in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he piled before the flocks in the gutters and the watering troughs when the flocks came to drink, that they would conceive when they drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring-streaked, speckled, spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks towards the ring-streaked, and all the brown of the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not into Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and made servants and men servants, and camels and asses. So I always thought this was like odd, but the verse by verse guy actually does a great job explaining this. And it is just, there's these certain types of trees that will cause sheep and goats to go into heat. I don't really understand it, but anyway, so he would put it in the water. So when they would come to drink, it would cause them to go into heat. But he would only pick out the ones that were the strong. So if there was like ones that had his markings, like ring streaks or brown, and they were strong, then he would put something in the water. So he would cause all the strong ones to mate. So that caused all those ones to actually grow. And then Laban ended up with all the weak, and he ended up with all the strong. It's kind of this thing about recessive genes, and how, like if you have two redheads that are parents, you're more likely to end up with a redhead kind of thing, because it's a recessive gene. But anyway, so that's kind of what he's doing here. I always thought it was like an odd story, so I thought I'd give a little bit of explanation. So Jacob is growing through trickery, while Laban is shrinking through trickery, but they both trick each other, and so it just goes back and forth. And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's he hath gotten all his glory. So now there's jealousy. We loved you when you were making us rich, but now we're not happy. You're taking care of yourself. Story of a lot of people's lives. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field in his flock. And he said, I see your father's countenance. It is not toward me as before, but the God of my father hath been with me. And ye know that with all my power I served your father, and your father hath deceived me and changed my wages these 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckled will be my wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said the ring streak shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring streaked. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and gave them to me. And it came to pass at that time the cattle conceived, and I lifted up my eyes, and I saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring streaked, speckled, and grizzled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up thine eyes, and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring streaked, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointest the pillar, and you vowed a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee up from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted as strangers? For he has sold us and devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours and our children's now. Whatever God has said, let's do. So the daughters, I mean, they may have had their little jealousy over the kids, and a lot of people make a huge deal out of it. I still think at the end of the day, they were sisters. And yeah, there was jealousy over children and stuff, which would be natural. I mean, you're married to the same man and living in the same area. But at the end of the day, blood's thicker than water, and they stuck together and they're sticking with their husband, which is really cool. So Jacob flees from Laban, and Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels and carried away his cattle and his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Padan Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel has stolen the image which were her father's. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, unawares to Laban, and that he told him he had not fled. So he fled away with all that he had, and he rose up and he passed over the river, and he set his face toward the Mount Gilead. So remember, he's 3 days away from Laban. So by the time he takes off, it takes a little while. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled, and he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey. And they overtook him on Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said, Take heed that you do not speak to Jacob either good or bad. And Laban overtook Jacob, and Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What have you done that you had stolen away unawares and carried away my daughters as captives, taken with the sword? Wherefore did you flee away secretly and steal away from me, and did not tell me that I might have sent thee away with myrrh and psalms and tabernacle and with harp? Which is totally a lie, because Jacob already asked to go away, and we know that he was like, Stay, don't go. What do you want to stay? And have you not suffered me to kiss my sons and daughters, and have you've done foolish in doing so? It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt, but the God of your father spoke unto me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed that you speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because you sore longest after my father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I said, Peradventure, thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Before our brethren, discern thou what is thine with me, and take it. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent and Leah's and the two maidservants, but he found them not. And then he went out of Leah's and entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture and sat upon them. And Laban searched, but he found them not. And she said to her father, Let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the things. And Jacob was wroth, and he chode with Laban. And Jacob answered and said, What is my trespass? What is my sin that you have so hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what have you found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before thy brethren, and before my brethren and thy brethren, that ye may judge between us. This 20 years have I been with thee, thy ewes and thy she goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. That which was torn of beast, I brought it not unto thee, I bear the loss of it. Of my hand did thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day, the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus I have been 20 years in thy house. I served 14 for thy two daughters, and 6 for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, the fear of Isaac had been with me. Surely thou hast sent me away now empty. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that you see is mine. And what can I do this day unto my daughters or the children which they have borne? Now therefore come thou, and let's make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones, and they took stones and made a heap, and did eat there at the heap. And Laban called it Jagar-Shadutha, but Jacob called it Galid. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore the name of it was called Galid. And Mizpah, for he said, the Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent. And if thou shalt afflict my daughters, or take other wives besides my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is the witness between me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, and behold this pillar which I have cast between me and thee. This heap be a witness, and this pillar be a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and you will not pass over this heap and pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, and called his brethren to eat bread. And they did eat bread, and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose up, and kissed his sons and daughters, and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned to his place. I always thought this part about the idol was weird too, but the verse by verse guy does a great job. And actually, I'm going to share that one. He does such a great job on this whole story of Jacob. I just think it's awesome. But anyway, the household gods, yeah, it was something they worshiped, and they had this little image, but it wasn't so much worship as it was a sign of the family. So it would be today as if you were the head of the family and you were the one named in the trust document. Those idols were a symbol that you could come and take claim to someone else's property. So what Laban is worried about more than anything is that Jacob can come back later once Laban is gone and claim the property because they have these idols. And Rachel took them because of that very purpose, because she wanted to have protection against her father because she didn't really trust him, obviously, and wanted to be with Jacob. So she took the idols as protection, and Laban wanted them back. And so they set up this heap. And so what they're saying here is this heap is a witness, and God is our witness that you're not going to try to come past this heap and come and take my property because you have my household idols. That's what the whole thing is all about. I hope that's helpful. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the reading today. And my goal is just to plant more seeds. I'm not like a trained Bible scholar by any stretch, but I just love the Bible, and I find it just amazing and interesting, and I learn so much every time I read it, and I hope that it's helping you too. If it is, please like and share, because that's our way of planting more seeds in this crazy world. Goodness knows people need it. Have a blessed day. Bye.